everyone, Philip Galinsky from Samba New York here, and in this lesson I'll be teaching you two typical variations that you can play on the surdo in a small group samba context, such as a roda de samba, which is a circle of samba musicians often around a table, or a samba or pagode band. If you're not familiar with the surdo, if you're new to the instrument, I highly recommend that you check out two videos that I posted previously here to the channel. The first one is a basic pattern for samba on the surdo, and the second one is a fancier basic pattern for samba on the surdo. Both of these tutorials can be found in our playlist, Some Basic Patterns for Samba Percussion. Once you've checked out those videos, come back here and join us, because this lesson will be a little more advanced because we're going to be diving into the question of variations. Before we proceed any further, let's address what we mean by variations. What is a variation? Well, for our purposes here, we can define a variation as any rhythmic figure, pattern, or sequence that deviates from whatever basic pattern or patterns that we're playing. And this could be virtually anything. It's wide open, okay? And unless we're playing in a situation in which all of the basic patterns and variations and everything that we're playing is pre-composed, set ahead of time, set in stone, unless we're in that kind of situation, at least in a small group samba setting like a roda de samba or a samba or pagode band, there's very typically a lot of flexibility, a lot of room, a lot of freedom for the individual musicians to play, to improvise, to play variations. Okay, but now that we know that, how do we know when to play a variation and which variation or variations to play? These are, of course, big questions. In my opinion, the answer is that it's subjective. In my opinion, it's up to the individual musician to determine when to play a variation and which variation or variations to play, okay? And of course, these are complex questions that, can take a long time to develop in a player. So in this lesson, we're gonna start very simply, all right? We're gonna start with a very easy framework that's very typical in samba, which is the 4-measure phrase. Before we get to that though, what do I mean by a phrase? Well, just like when we're speaking, when I'm speaking, I don't speak in a monotone and keep speaking ad infinitum without ever pausing, without raising or lowering the pitch of my voice, without inflection. When we speak, we usually have inflection, we have pauses that let the listener know that we've come to the end of an idea or the end of a sentence. The same thing goes in music, and samba is no exception. And there are no rules about how long a phrase is in samba. And a phrase could be, could be 4 measures long, it could be less than 4 measures, it could be longer than 4 measures. It all depends on the song and the piece that we're playing. It's wide open. There are no rules in that regard at all. But it's very common in samba, as well as many other genres of music, to have 4-measure phrases, or at least phrases that are even numbers of measures, like 2, 4, 6, 8, etc. But because the 4-measure phrase is so common, we'll work with that. So what do I mean by the phrase? Well, a phrase is an idea, right? So whether it's in the melody, whether it's in the rhythmic accompaniment, the harmonic accompaniment, whatever's going on in the song, the different instruments highlight the beginning and tell some sort of a story and highlight the end of the phrase to let the listener know that this is a sentence, just like we do when we're speaking, okay? So let's just take that as a given for now, and we don't have to go any further than that, but let's just jump into our variations. Now, we can play a variation anywhere within our phrase. In this case, it's 4 measures, but it's very common and very typical for a lot of musicians to want to play a variation at the end of a phrase, to let the listener know that we're coming to the end of the idea or the sentence, right? And it just so happens that the surdo is one of those instruments that very typically will play some sort of a variation at the end of a phrase. Now, of course, variations can happen at the beginning, the middle, or at the end of a phrase, and different instruments can play variations at different points, and we can get very complex with that. But for our purposes here, we're just going to play a variation on the surdo at the end of our 4-measure phrase. So we're going to play our basic pattern for 3 measures, and in our 4th measure, we're going to play one of these 2 variations. All right? So the basic pattern we'll be using in this video is this one. That's what I call the fancier basic pattern. But if you want to use this one, you can use this one. or if that's too complicated, you could use this one. Whatever works for you, as long as you're using some version of our basic pattern for samba on the surdo. All right? Variation number one. What I'm calling variation number one is very typical and it's very easy. It's just mute, open, mute, open, mute, open, mute, open. So in all the main beats, we're going to be playing a muted stroke, and in all the ands of every beat, we're going to be playing an open tone or open stroke. All right? So 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and it's a super common variation. All right? So here we go. Let's do it slowly. Variation number one. 3 measures of basic and then variation. 3 E and a 4 E and a 1. 2. 3. 4. And again, 1. 2. 3. 4. All right, a little faster. 3 E and a 4 E and a 1. 2. 3. 4. And again, 1. 2. 3. 4. All right, let's move on to variation number 2. What I'm calling variation number 2. These numbers are arbitrary. All right, what I'm calling variation number 2 is a little trickier because we're going to be playing with an offbeat, the of the beat. All right, so we're going to be going like this: 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. And we start the variation from beat 1. We're going to be going 1, a 2, a 3, a 4, a 1. All right, that's the variation. So we're going to be playing an open tone on the of 1, on the of 2, on the of 3, and the of 4, like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. A 2, a 3, a 4, a 1. Okay, let's do it with our 4 measure sequence. 1, 2, and a 3, and a 4, and a 1. 2, 3, 1, 1, 2, 3, 4. A little faster. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, there you have it. 2 variations that you can use on the surdo in a small group samba context. I use these variations all the time. Again, they don't necessarily have to be played at the end of a phrase. They don't necessarily have to be played on the 4th measure, but it's very common to do that, so let's use that as our starting point. Have fun with it. Let me know if you have any questions in the comment section. If you haven't yet subscribed, subscribe to the channel, support us, thank you, and share this video with any friend who you think would enjoy and benefit from this lesson. Thank you so much, and I'll see you in the next video.